All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's Help Systems webinar, How to Move to POWER9 the Right Way. And we are coming to you from all over the globe. Today's speakers include Tom Huntington, Robin Tatam, Doug Mewmaw, and myself. Tom, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on today's webinar. I'm Tom Huntington, and I'm our Executive Vice President of Technical Solutions. I've been with Help for about 30 years and also an IBM Power Champion. So very excited about that, helping to promote the platform, of course, what Help Systems does. So excited to be with you today.
Hey, Robin.
Yes, sir.
All
My
right,
name is
you're next.
Robin Tatam. Yeah, I am another one of the IBM champions here at Help Systems, which is really unique, I think, for Help Systems to have as many as we do. But my role is really to evangelize the security message on the Power Systems platform. So I work with our customers and user groups like Common to spread information about whether there are vulnerabilities, what those are, and how we can fix them.
Thanks, Robin. Hey, Doug.
Hey guys, hey, Doug Mewmaw here, Director of Education and Analysis with MPG, now Help Systems. So just a high level, I've been using the Performance Navigator product line for 20 years now. So been using it in capacity planning, and it's going to be fun to talk about all the new functionality with you guys today.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. And Chuck Losinski, Director of Technical Solutions, focus primarily on the power servers and power solutions that we have available from Help Systems. And today I'm going to be talking to you about real-time monitoring around your POWER9 system. And we've talked to lots and lots and lots of folks who have upgraded to POWER9 this year. So it's really, really exciting.
Excellent. Well, thanks, Chuck. We got an exciting agenda for people. We have POWER9 hardware update. I want to update you a little bit of what's going on with hardware in general. Sizing of POWER9 the right way by Doug. Monitoring your POWER9 servers by Chuck. And then wrapping it up with security considerations for POWER9 by Robin. So from a POWER9 hardware upgrade standpoint, it started shipping for IBM I, AIX, and Linux back in March of 2018. So we're sitting really at the first anniversary of the POWER9 technology being available to customers on I platform. The scale up servers, so the larger servers came out in September of 2018, so those are now available. And just a couple other things to think about at IBM Think, speaking of thinking, in February of 2019, which I was at, IBM announced that Power in the Cloud for AIX and I. So previously their soft layer group, which is now IBM Power Cloud, it has been announced to run in the cloud. And then also Google announces Power in their cloud. So they're starting to use the POWER9 technology in their cloud and the ability to host IBM I, AIX, something that you won't see a lot of announcements from IBM, but as a business partner, we can talk about. So what's next? Well, new operating system coming out in spring of 2019 too, so something to think about there too. So what are your plans for IBM I upgrades was something that we asked in the recent IBM I marketplace study, and I was really surprised by the fact that 42% of you are planning on upgrading your hardware and operating system. Some of you are just doing software here this year, so a healthy amount of customers are updating. Only 42% aren't, which probably tells me you're probably on maybe a later version of Power 7 or Power 8. And then the other thing to keep in mind is now that we're in the software replication business, we might be able to help you out with some side-by-side migrations that you might be doing when you migrate from older technology to your new POWER9 technology. Okay. So some other things to make you aware of is in 2019, there's several servers that are going to be out of service by IBM. Now, Help Systems doesn't sell any hardware. We don't benefit from selling you new hardware, but we do need to keep you informed in the industry of what's happening. So there's some of the older Power 5s that are going away, already have. End of this month, we got Power 6 that are going off the support by IBM, and then as we roll in, we have Power 7s that are going to be going out of support in September of 2019. So a lot happening here, and down the road at the bottom, we have some of the bigger P5s and around the IBM I technology that impact many of you that will be going off in October of 2020. So those things are all imminent, and IBM's pretty serious nowadays about end of service on this technology. So of course that brings us to attention. What are the servers available for POWER9? Just to remind you, on the scale out technology, which is really powerful. If you look at the CPW capabilities, you have the S914 and S924 that are most common for IBM I. You can run IBM I also on the HANA, the ones with the H in front of them. The L are for Linux only, like the Linux 922. The E950, we can skip over that for IBM I customers. You can run AIX and Linux on that, but not IBM I. E980s are for your scale up servers. And of course, over to the right, we have the Linux only servers for big data. And then we have the AI AC922 server, which was the first server actually shipped back in December of 2017, actually, is when IBM started rolling out the GPUs. Okay. So we're off to our first polling question. Back to you, Chuck.
Sure. We have launched the polling question, Tom. When do you plan to upgrade to POWER9? In the next month, the next 6 months, the end of 2019, maybe in the next 12 months or so, maybe a little bit further out, or you don't know if POWER9 is right for you. You know, one observation I have, Tom, from talking to our customers is I've seen a lot of POWER8 folks upgrading to POWER9, which I think is interesting in itself.
Yeah, that's true. I have seen that too. So, well, but you know, think about lease time. POWER8's been out for over 3 years. So if you're
Sure.
on one of those shorter leases, certainly you could be upgrading already to POWER9 here last year and in through this year, which I think is what's happening. Typically, what do you see? 3 to 5 year leases. And of course, people who buy, you know, biggest problem with IBM I is that a lot of the servers are underutilized from a performance standpoint, and so customers can stay on them for quite a while.
Right. Okay, we'll give you about another 10 seconds, but just a little preview. It looks like about 22% say in the next month they plan on upgrading. 28% currently are looking at 12 months and further, and about 18% don't know if POWER9 is right. 16% by the end of 2019. So let's close the poll and share the results. There we go, Tom. What do you think?
Very interesting. I'm trying to get a little, okay, there we go. Well, it looks like, okay, over the next 12 months is the highest percent with 26%. That's very interesting to see. In the next month, wow, 22% are going really quick here. And then, you know, 18% over the next 6 months by the end of 2019. You know, okay, and then, you know, less than 20% saying it's not right for them. So very good.
All right.
A lot of activity around POWER9 on this group anyways.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for participating. And Doug, Mewmaw, you're up.
All right. Next slide, please. So hi, everybody. So capacity planning, this is such a fun subject for me. And I thought those stats were amazing. If you look at those stats, you know, most everybody was going to POWER9. So I always think of, you know, capacity planning. I've been very blessed where I've done it for 20 years. I first did it as a tech support manager, and you think about guys in the trenches, right? Our deliverable is to make sure we're ready for that holiday season or that peak season. You know, we all can't go out to the Best Buy and go get a POWER9 system. It'd be nice if we could, but we can't. And one of the things, we just recently wrote an article on the mistakes of capacity planning, the top 5 mistakes. And the one thing that we strive for everybody is it's a total team environment. When you're working with us at Help Systems, you know, we've got proven methodologies to do this right because we've done it for years. But it is whether you're a customer or a business partner, we're all working as a team. The business partners, right? Tom's right. They know all the hardware and everything. Think how the industry has changed over the years. And then think of the customers, you know what's going internally into your companies. That together makes a solid capacity plan. So, you know, I think of me personally, I had to get ready for the peak season, but I had to always think of the industry changes. Like, for example, nowadays, right, in the old days, we had internal disk, and now we have external. So when you're doing capacity plans, you have to think of, okay, am I going to do solid state drives? Is it flash? And I had one yesterday where we had a neat hybrid solution where a customer had really, really bad disk response time. But then what we did is we said, okay, let's give them spinning disk and let's give them some SSDs. And then when we modeled it, we could say, oh my gosh, look at how good their disk response time is going to be. You know, that's what you're doing with capacity planning. And those are the kind of questions you ask. One of my favorite things was to walk into my CIO and say, hey boss, I'm going to save you $500,000. And he'd look at me and I'd say, hey, we're going to do on our next upgrade, when we go to POWER9, we're going to do server consolidation. And he'd look at me and say, get on my office and go do it, right? It made him happy. You know, when you're consolidating workload, we can do that and save a lot, you know, software costs and the like. Certainly, you know, we were able to look at all platforms, whether you're IBM i, ARX Linux, we can do those kind of capacity plans as well. And when I always think about my deliverable, I had to plan for that growth. Real life example, anybody knows my teaching when I teach all over the world, I love real life examples. I had one yesterday where we did that capacity plan and they were growing, their CPW was growing at a 37% clip. So you always have to plan for that growth, and you also have to plan for unexpected growth. Sometimes your business is humming and you're doing better than expected, and that's why capacity plan is not an exact science. You always have to be ready for that unexpected growth. And by the way, in that real life example, we were able to use a performance navigator and look at a before date, look at an after date, and they asked the question, hey, why are we growing at that alarming rate? And within 10 seconds, we were able to show them that they had 3 key jobs in their infrastructure that were growing at like a 200% clip. So that's why when you have a solid methodology and a solid tool, you can get those answers. And finally, a lot of people, when they're doing capacity plans, want a system that'll last 3 years, 4 years, and 5 years. And we can get to that level as well. Next slide. So to me, the secret sauce for me and you guys is going to be Performance Navigator. One of the things that like I said, I've used this product for 20 years now. And, you know, when I first started with the product 20 years ago, it was more of a capacity planning tool. That was my opinion. Over the last 16, it's evolved into a full-blown system admin tool where you're doing, you know, I use the term, no more guessing, no more having a feeling. You're going to see historical data and understand your systems at such a deeper level. So whether you're doing capacity planning, performance tuning, problem determination, it does not matter. You're going to learn your systems at a deeper level. And it's used in over 1,000 data centers worldwide. And you can see, again, when you're doing power systems capacity planning, all platforms. All right, next slide. So why are we here, right? We're going to do POWER9 upgrade. We saw it in the stats. One of the things that you're going to get when you work with help systems, you're going to get deliverables that make you understand your entire enterprise easily. The first thing that you'll get, and it's one of my favorite reports, and by the way, CIOs love this report, it's our enterprise hardware summary. And what this is, it'll show you all of your core metrics and the totals of what you have for like CPW, RPERF, cores, memory, and disk. And the reason CIOs love this, think of your giant enterprises, especially nowadays in a virtualized world where we're moving cores and everything all around. It's hard to keep track of all this stuff. So when we're giving you capacity planning services that help systems, right away, we're going to give you the big picture of how you're configured today. So, and my favorite thing, and unfortunately, I've gotten a few sysadmins in trouble over the thing that Chuck is pointing at right now, is that operating system inventory. That inventory, think about it, we inventory all the levels of the OS you're at. And the CIOs will look at it and say, hey, how come we're at so many different levels? Well, in fairness to you guys out there, we're all fighting fires, right? We're all doing so much, but at least this report will give you the big picture of where you're at currently in regards to all your resources. And we do the same thing for the model inventory. Next slide. Then we get down to the nitty gritty. So once you know your totals, now you can go down and say, and you can look at every LPAR, and you can see multi-platform. Very, very important that you understand all your LPARs. I've walked into so many meetings over the years, and again, when in this virtualized world, you'll have questions like, hey, how much memory do we have on prod, or how many cores do we have on our BIOS server? You're not going to need to go hunt for that. Now you're going to have this enterprise hardware summary. This is part of the deliverable that you'll get, and you'll know exactly where you're at. I call it kind of like a baseline. You need to know where you're at before you're starting a capacity plan. This is where you're at. Okay, so next slide. So now that we know our hardware resources, what's my baseline in regard to performance? I mean, that's why we're here, right? We're going to upgrade to this POWER9. Before you can even think about how big the POWER9 is, what are we doing today? So what's really neat is our enterprise performance overview, where we have the same cool by frame view for all your LPARs, all platforms, and you can see we grade your current performance based on best practice guidelines. So think about that. When before you can even do an upgrade, you need to know, like, where are we today? Do I even need to do an upgrade, right? So when you look at this, we look at all the core metrics like CPU, disk response time, and memory, and we'll show you averages. We'll show you how high you're getting, and built right into this process is the trends. How neat is that? As we're doing capacity planning, right off the bat, you can say, oh, wow, if you look at that top one, we're growing at 117% clip in CPU. You know, Mayday, you know, maybe you didn't know that. I've had a lot of capacity plans with a CIO, and this is in fairness to them, they're thinking like a business, like that business and revenue. They'll say, let's build this new system based on 20% growth, because that's what we did in revenue last year. And I'll go out there and say, Mayday, you're growing at 100% clip. And when they see the real numbers and see that you're just not making it up and it's real historical data, then they go, oh, you're right. That's why a proven methodology and a proven tool will get you there more accurately. All right, next slide. So once you know your performance, now let's do the capacity plan. So one of the screenshots you're seeing here is our what if analysis, and here's a great example of a server consolidation. So this is a frame view where you're looking at a bunch of OSs on there, BIOS, AIX, and IBMI, but you can see here plenty of room for growth. When you're doing capacity planning, very common, what we're going to give you, option 1, option 2, option 3. And it's going to be based on input from the customer, the business partner, and our expertise. So here we just look at that. And again, you're going to see not only a frame view, but we'll give you LPAR views as well. Next slide. One of my favorite things, and sysadmins will love this, one deliverable that you're going to get is a recommended desire and virtual setting report. That's why we're here, right? We're going to this POWER9. How am I going to configure it? We give you exactly what you need to do as far as your desired, and we'll give you memory recommendations as well. And finally, how do we engage? Next slide. So one of the neat things about working for Help Systems now is I think of the way capacity planning was done at MPG for years. We had kind of a channel where business partners would come in away and customers would come away, and it worked fine. Help Systems made it even easier. I love this. If you look at that top link, that helpsystems.com, and I know it's a long link, but that link right there is one-stop shopping for you to click in there. And what I did is I showed a screenshot of what you'll get. Very structured, easy page. You fill out the form, and then what we'll have our Help Systems team get back and call you and talk about your needs and the like. And that's how easy it is just to start the capacity planning services with Help Systems. And I hope everybody, on your upgrades to POWER9, good luck. You guys will do them well. I know you will. Okay, back to you guys.
Nice job on that, Doug. Hey, I was just going to make a comment too that if you don't want to do this yourself, talk to your business partner. Chances are they use Performance Navigator in the background too.
All right, and Doug, are you going to share out that link via the chat?
Okay.
All right.
I will do that.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Our next topic, monitoring POWER9 servers. One of the challenges that we've seen in this area is that POWER9 makes virtualization a lot easier. So we're seeing more and more multi-partition environments on our Power IBMI world. And in many cases, VIOS or virtual IO server is part of the equation. So now you've got yet another server and AIX to boot to monitor. All right. If you've got multiple partitions, you've got some challenges around PTFs. Have you potentially considered Power HA and an IASP environment potentially? So now you've got some Power HA monitoring to incorporate. And certainly you want to be proactive in your monitoring. You want to know what's going on right now. So we would like to talk to you a little bit about Robot Monitor. This is technology that was added to the robot product line a few years ago now, about 3 years. And it's some really fantastic technology for doing real-time performance system and application monitoring. It's also a multi-partition view of your world, all in a single dashboard. You have the ability to create multiple dashboards that you can supply to different groups in your organization. For instance, maybe your app dev group, your operations group, your engineering group might need different views of what's going on. And we're talking about more than just CPU utilization. All right, so response time, batch processing, servicing JDBC and ODBC type requests, those can be affected by, for instance, disk I/O. So that's part of the equation when it comes to monitoring. PTFs across your various partitions that you have loaded on your Power server. Exception notification when you exceed a threshold, either a threshold that we define as best practice or that you define as what you would expect over and above your baseline for your application performance. If you have IBM MQ, they've got some built-in IBM MQ monitoring. VIOS monitoring, of course, I mentioned that that's part of the equation. If you have Mimics is fairly common out there for a replication tool. We have some built-in Mimics monitoring as well as BRMS monitoring. Disk storage is a challenge. So if you're wondering where your disk storage went in terms of library or IFS consumption, certainly that's part of the equation. So when I say real-time monitoring, we're out there checking every 30 seconds. We're collecting that data. We're also collecting those jobs that are consuming CPU and disk I/O every 30 seconds. All right, so what that means is I can go back in time, and if I have a spike in my performance or my temporary storage or any of the metrics that we're collecting with Robot Monitor, I can go back to that time period and I can see exactly what was running. And out of this too, I can get real-time notification. With a recent enhancement to Robot Monitor, we also provide visibility into the SQL statement that is being executed by an interactive job, a JDBC connection, maybe a batch job. All right, so bringing visibility into the SQL statement and certainly how that affects your system is very, very important. All right, so this is going to be the only live demo in our presentation today, so I would like to do that. So let me bring up Robot Monitor Live. All right, so what you're seeing now is the Robot Monitor graphical interface. Currently, I have my production dashboard displayed. My production dashboard is my 3 production systems called Academy, Earl, and Wisdom. So spread across here is my real-time monitoring showing current CPU utilization, batch CPU, disk percent full, even just to show you the variety of metrics that we can collect. Because remember, this is an application monitor and a system monitor and a performance monitor. I'm monitoring, for instance, the number of spool files in QEasy Job Log and QEasy Debug. So if you have a program that might be choking, you might be seeing an increase in the number of program dumps. Partition uptime, even JDBC CPU consumption, okay? And we're gonna focus on that here with our demo. I'm going to run a couple of processes. One is going to be a batch process that's going to be consuming quite a bit of CPU, and the other one is a JDBC process. All right, and we're going to see right here, you can see we've got our overall CPU utilization going up. All right, and we're also going to see our JDBC CPU utilization going up as well. All right, so you can see down here in our last couple of hours of CPU utilization, you can see we've got a little spike going on here. So what I have the ability to do is I can drill down into the details of my consumption. All right, you can see now we're up to 146%. All right, we've got my JDBC CPU increasing. So what I can do, for instance, is I can go into the details of what's consuming the processor or disk I/O, whatever the metric is, and I can drill down into this activity, and I can even get down to the SQL information. All right, so I've brought that visibility into the equation, and in fact, I'm getting notified from Robot that one of my metrics has exceeded the threshold that I had in place. All right, so this is just a real quick demonstration of both visual and external notification. So if you're not in front of the GUI, you're not in front of the graphical interface, you're still going to get notified in real time that you're having potentially a performance issue and you need to do some investigation. All right, and that's all I'm going to do for the live demo. We're going to go back and we're going to turn things over to Rob and Tatam.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for the demo, Chuck. It's always fun to see the evolution of that tool. It just keeps getting stronger and stronger. The security side of the conversation is something that I think everybody is painfully familiar with. You know, there's probably not too many people in the IT world that have not got some consideration of either data breaches or regulatory compliance on their radar somewhere. So when we talk about this in coordination with POWER9, one of the things that we try to explore is whether the server's being connected to the system and to the network in the same manner as the prior technology. Now, I do surprisingly still have customers say to me, but my IBMI or my AS400, as we still hear it referenced, is not connected to the internet. And while that may be true in a direct sense, really there is no device today that isn't somehow interconnected with other devices that are. So we've got to acknowledge that there's always a path through typically the network to gain access from some type of outside connection. In fact, of course, hosting all this enterprise data in our applications is going to be often usable to business partners and vendors and customers as well. So we have to kind of analyze that as part of our overall infrastructure. Some of you, I'm sure, have also heard about the Spectre and Meltdown chip vulnerabilities. I'm actually going to talk more about that in just a minute, and so we'll skip over that one. And always on the mind, I think, of any IBMI shop is whether the folks that are in charge of maintaining and managing the system, securing the system, are perhaps at a point in their career where they're looking for some type of exit strategy, hopefully for a long retirement. So we have to acknowledge that oftentimes the people that have architected these systems are not necessarily going to be with us or may no longer be with us already. And so part of that stems back to the idea that we want to have clear, concise configuration, not only for our administration folks, but also from a security perspective, so that if we're promoting new objects into production, that we know how those objects should be configured and ensure that they are deployed in the correct manner. And then I'm going to touch on the free security scan as well. But for right now, let's go ahead to the next slide here. There are some IBMI security topics that have kind of bubbled up to the surface. One of the questions we asked during our annual marketplace study is kind of the areas of interest that people have as it pertains to different aspects to IBMI. And under the security side, encryption is arguably one of the most popular conversation points today. And there's a number of different ways we can do encryption under IBMI, ranging from full disk encryption to software-based encryption using a technology called field procedures that IBM introduced back in version 7.1 of the operating system. That allows us to do data at rest encryption with little to no impact on the structure of the database or even the applications that are reading and writing that data. So a lot of functionality that can be done there with minimal invasion to the existing process. Multi-factor authentication, again, is a recognition really often by regulatory compliance mandates that user IDs and passwords simply aren't robust enough. They don't identify that the person entering the credentials is only the person that was assigned those credentials. So using multi-factor authentication has proven to be a great way of assuring that those two things align. When we enter the information we know, then we're prompted to provide something that perhaps we possess, like a phone or a key fob, and that we can prove that we are who we say we are. Setting a password back to something usable is arguably the most common user function. When you look at the calls coming into help desk, we know that a significant portion of those pertain to user password resets and re-enablement. And so providing automated functionality to do that has become extremely popular. Why bother the help desk if the user can get themselves back productive again in a shorter time? Single sign-on is another technology that we work with a lot of customers in. This was something that we saw 6-7 years ago initially, and it kind of went quiet, but it's seen a massive resurgence over the last year or two, where people are, again, just trying to work with a simpler environment. They want their users to sign on to the network and have access to the servers they need without necessarily having to remember an entire plethora of passwords. So single sign-on is a great way to do that, and we have some services that make that very easy to do. Arguably, one of the main pain points that I see in an IBMI context is the number of users operating with administrative privileges, and All Object is a great example of that. Godlike privileges allow access to objects that perhaps are outside of the scope of the user's role, and so by reducing or limiting the number of users that have All Object or the scope of what you can use that for is definitely something that should be on your radar, if not already. Authority collection, that's a great example of a technology IBM's introduced into the later versions of the operating system, in this case 7.3, allowing us to gain greater insight into the amount of authority that a user has to the objects on the system. So we can turn the collection on. This will give us feedback about the origination of the authority, how much authority they had, and how much they actually needed, which makes it a much more clearly defined process to implement object-level security. So that's an exciting enhancement that IBM brought to us in 7.3. And the last one there, it's not new, but it seems to be still a new conversation for many people. So if the term exit points is not familiar to you, or exit program, just know that it is an aspect of the operating system that allows you to implement kind of user-defined functions. In the security exit points usually pertain to connections coming through ODBC and FTP, and are, of course, going to differ from those users that are coming in through the traditional green screen. And the exit points allow us to oversee those connections in a way that can be extremely beneficial and, again, regarded as critical by most regulatory mandates. So lots of different things here. Go ahead, Chuck, if you want to move on to the next slide. I just want to mention Meltdown Inspector because this is a common question that I get, and IBM's fairly tight-lipped about this, but it does impact the PowerPC processes, and that includes POWER9. I think a lot of us think when the POWER9 is released that it was immediately, architected, but many times these chips have been in production or at least in design for several years prior to that. So the POWER9 is impacted. There are some firmware and operating system fixes that you can apply, but just understand there will be a performance implication when you apply those fixes. So the benefit here really of POWER9 is the added horsepower that allows you to apply those fixes with less noticeable impact, perhaps on your applications, but definitely a consideration if you are yet to size a machine for your application workload. And then my last slide is just going to talk to a free security scan service that we provide our customers. It's something that can look at your IBMI server in just a couple of minutes. We'll spend the better part of an hour with you going through this line by line. And really the reason I promote the security scan when we talk about POWER9 is a lot of times people forget that when you upgrade your processor, or even your operating system for that matter, nothing really changes because most of us migrate from an older technology. And we bring those settings, those profiles, those system values over from the old machine. In other words, it's going to look exactly like the old one did. It's just going to run faster. And so security is something that can be done at any time. It doesn't need to wait for that pending upgrade. And if you've already done an upgrade, don't be fooled into thinking that by being on the latest operating system or on the latest technology, that you don't necessarily have configuration weaknesses that are kind of systemic and common on the platform. So this is a great way to get a very non-invasive look at your system and an expert to go through it with you and take advantage of that. It's no cost, no obligation.
Excellent job, Robin. Last thing we want to point out to you is that Help Systems does participate in the IBMI Solution Edition program, where as you purchase your Power 8 and Power 9 server, depending upon which server, and you can see them here in the document. If you bundle that with some of our software, we are the ISV in this case, you can get some rebates and be part of this program. I did send out the link for this program, so with that, we can move on to the next slide. And we have our last polling question. Chuck, if you can pull that up for us, that would be wonderful. Thank you. How can we help? I'd like to talk to Doug about capacity planning. I'd like to talk to Chuck about monitoring. I'd like to talk to Robin about my security concerns. Let's schedule a tech update, and since my name's not in there, I can be one of those people that help you with a help systems overview of what's new with our company and go through everything that we do. And then let's schedule a free security scan, and we do a lot of those, almost 1 or 2 of those a day. So excellent last polling question that Chuck has put up here. Chuck, any further comments from your end?
Well, I was just going to say, take a minute, and if you do want us to do any follow-up with you, that would be fantastic. You are going to receive a follow-up email with a link to this presentation along with some additional collateral. And if you do have any questions, certainly reach out to us. Appreciate everybody participating with us today.
I know we went over a little bit, but if you do have any questions, just use the question toolbar feature. We'll get the question here, and if we don't answer it live today, we can certainly do that through email in the future as we communicate with you. The session was recorded too, so there will be playback on our website. And to remind everybody, we have almost 500 recorded webinars on our Help Systems website, not just on product demos, but there's a lot of information. Robin's done a ton on security, Robin Tatam, Carol Woodbury's done a ton on security. And then we also certainly reach out to other parts of your organization with webinars on Windows automation, Linux automation, performance monitoring, security for those platforms. So the world of Help Systems changed quite a bit. Have a tech update and we'll explain all that to you.
Yep, and with that, Tom, I think we'll conclude the webinar. I think I'll leave the polling questions up just for another 30 seconds or so. We appreciate everybody's time today, and thanks again. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.